Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Grumman Pilot's YouTube channel. And today we're going to talk about taking off your main fairing and covering all the little special bushings and putting it back on.
So here are the tools you need to remove a main wheel bearing from a Grumman aircraft, either a 4-place or a 2-place. Pretty much the same. You need a screwdriver for removing the brake cover. You need a 3/8 inch, that'll be for the A and 4 bolts that hold the main bracket to the fairing. You need a 7/16 to get to the top quarter 20 nut on top of the flex bolt, and you need the 1/2 inch for the axle nut that's on the outside of the wheel pan. With just these few tools, you can remove a fairing from the aircraft, and we're going to do that right.
And so to remove the main landing gear from the aircraft, we're going to take off the brake cover, we're going to release the flex bolt, we're going to take out the main axle bolt, and we're going to remove the 4 bolts that hold the main bracket. With those 4 things, the fairing will come off the aircraft.
And then we can just remove the brake cover right off the aircraft, and there's no damage to this brake cover. Don't want to stress them too much. Alright, takes care of the flex bolt. Be sure when you put it back on to replace the star washer to get locking. Pulling the plug out, as you can see how the bolt sits in there very nicely when you go to thread it back in.
For those of you who like to clean as you go, as you're taking all these parts off the airplane, the main bracket, the flex bolts, you can clean them all. You can take the main bracket, you can bead blast it, prime it, put all new hardware in it, paint it, and put it back on the airplane, and it will look great.
And this morning, we're going to show 2 things on an airplane. There's a couple little special washers, but we're going to be putting on the main gear fairing bracket, and we're also going to show how to properly seat the hat washer, which is very similar to this one. So this main bracket is held into this capture, and the stacking on this goes is you have your A and 6 bolt. So the first thing you have is a 6/16 washer. Then goes on the little special, very expensive steel bushing you can get from Fletcher. It goes on, and then this whole assembly goes through the bracket, and the whole purpose of that is that bushing rides perfectly well right in here so that the bolt can flex, but you can put torque on it, but yet it doesn't bind the bracket. Then we add the 3 washers required for this airplane and the bushing, and now we're ready to put this all back together. It's a 9/16 bolt head, thread it all together, and then sometimes you get lucky on this, tightening up, you get it tight, and then see it wants to bind, but if we rock it, now it gets much looser. Now that bushing has fallen into the recess built into the bracket, and now you can finish torquing this up, and when you're done, you've got 22 inches of foot-pounds on that bolt, but yet the bracket still wobbles. Now we're going to put the fairing on, and then we'll be back to show you how to properly seat the hat washer. It's the same basic principle. Stand by. Okay, now let's do the hat washer. Hat washer has a very similar thing. We take the AN5 bolt, that's your main axle bolt, star washer, and then it's called a hat washer. Its technical name in the illustrated parts catalog is a bushing, but since it looks like a little hat or sombrero, thanks Garner, that we'll just go ahead and put it together. Then we have a socket that we've jammed some paper into, so it just sits just like that, so we can feed it right in. Feed it in, get it started, hand tighten it until you feel that it's locked. Now, what we want to do is the fairings, and then we wiggle it, and now it's completely centered, and now we can come back and finish tightening up the thing. So what you want to do on all these bushings that you have, those special riding bushings, it allows the fairing to move, but yet still be properly torqued to the aircraft. Here we are back, getting ready to put the fairings back on the aircraft. And I just want to, the most trickiest part of putting this back on the airplane is the hat washer. There's a little washer. We call it a hat washer because it looks like a little bit like a hat. And we want to make sure what it does is it goes in here into the main bracket, and it comes in from the other side. I'm going to show you on this side. But it centers your fairing so the bolt can apply pressure to the adapter on the outside of the main wheel to hold the fairing on the aircraft, and it keeps it centered. So what you need to do is when you're putting it on, you're going to watch me as I feed it in with a socket. And this is just a 1/2-inch socket that's got some paper towel shoved in it so that it holds the bolt so I can feed it through, and the hat washer. After it's in place, I'm going to wiggle the fairing to make sure this actually slides into the hole and center, so that when I tighten it, I'm only pivoting in one direction and not moving around and don't achieve a false torque. So let's get this back on the aircraft.
And now let's go ahead and put the fairing back on the aircraft. First thing we do, we slide it over the bracket. We put the main axle bolt in the outside, get it torqued and set. And then we put in the flex bolt that secures it on both the left and the right side. And then we put in the 4 AM3 bolts that hold the main bracket. And then at that point, we're ready to put the brake cover on, which will complete the main fairing install on the aircraft.
And there you go, ladies and gentlemen, a wheel fairing installed back on the aircraft like it never happened. Thanks for watching.
And in addition, there's a little treat about 3 o'clock in the morning when I'm doing web work and other stuff. Here's my cat coming down, playing with a mouse and meowing and just having a good time with me in the wee hours of the night. So I thought I would throw this into you as a little treat. Y'all please enjoy.